Good morning. My name is Cindy Statham, and Pastor Tim asked me to fill in for him today. I always consider it a privilege to be asked to preach, so thank you for having me this morning. As many of you know, I won't take much of your time, but I do hope to leave you with thoughts to ponder and, more importantly, actions to take. I want to tell you about 2 phone calls I received recently. The first call was regarding a young man in his 40s. This young man had committed suicide that morning, leaving behind a teenage daughter, as well as other family members and friends who were left reeling in shock and despair. I could hear the pain and dismay in my loved one's voice as he described the sequence of events. The second call I received the very next day was from an old friend whom I have known for many years. We watched our grandchildren grow up and our children. Her 21-year-old grandson had committed suicide. So many unanswered questions. What had become so painful in this life that they could not bear it another moment? After all, Jesus came to give us life and give it abundantly. And that, my friends, is the ultimate gift. How does it get so twisted in our minds that we choose death over life? I think I can somewhat understand how people get so tangled up. I, too, went to some pretty dark places when I was younger. Right now, I think we keep looking on the outside of us for the answers instead of on the inside of us. It's easy to look at the violence, the injustice, the sickness, and the poverty all around us and fall into despair. While Jesus rejected the ideas of control, violence, and power, we as a society are immersed in it. As Richard Rohr stated, the opposite of faith is not doubt, but control. We lose our faith in God, His kingdom, and His might, and try to control the world around us. There are 4 major flaws with trying to control our environment and others. 1 is it doesn't help. 2, it can hurt ourselves and others. 3, that is called playing God when we try to control others, which is never a good idea on all kinds of levels. As we well know, it did not turn out well for Adam and Eve. Finally, if you are so busy controlling others, then you have lost sight of your relationship with God and one another. And most of all, you lose faith that God is in control and He will provide everything in His infinite wisdom. But the way things have been presented to me lately, or perhaps it's just my perception, is that the world, and I think this is happening to a lot of people, is that the world has become so violent and the way we treat each other so bad that we were just hanging out waiting for Jesus to come back. And the problem with that is it becomes very difficult to find meaning in what we are doing right here, right now, in this life. And really, here and now is all we have. We become pessimistic, sad, defeated. I went to Pastor Tim with my perceptions and questions. What's happened to the world? Pastor Tim pointed out that the world is a much less violent place than it was in the Old Testament. that women and people of color are treated more fairly now than ever before. It's not perfect. That Christians, in fact, do much good work in the world. Talk about a big aha moment. Right, so I'm up here preaching, and I've done my share of teaching, and I'm even an elder in this church. It's not perfect, but I have advantages, and so does everybody else in this country, and opportunities that my mother and grandmothers never had, and many women and people of color still don't have in other churches today. Our world also has a growing awareness of racism, sexism, and intolerance of others, which tells me we are headed in the right direction. We also have much improved our treatment of animals and the way we care for our earth. But what can we do now so that we don't lose ourselves in this messy thing called life? How do we stay strong and still give to others in need our hope, our good news? He is the vine, we are the branches. We need to always be growing in his love, never disconnect from God, and never disconnect from one another, as it tells us in Hebrews. Do not forget meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, and encourage one another. Although we are fighting against Satan, who came to steal and destroy, Jesus came to give us life and life abundantly. So we are to receive the life Jesus gives us. What do we do? What do all living things need to stay alive? Water, air, food, and sunlight. First, sunlight is essential for all living things, whether it's plants or animals or humans. I would venture to say that most suicides begin with depression, and depression is easy to feed if we keep it in the dark. We hide in the dark. We isolate. We begin to cut ourselves off from God and others. We lose our transparency. We think we are alone. You are not alone. You are a child of God. He is proud of who he's made you to be. And we are proud to know you exactly as you are. There are so many people with different gifts that are different than ours, but that's what makes the world an exciting place, our differences. I can lick the paper. I'm the only one up here. In listening to people's stories, I have found that there is a tragedy behind every door. But there is also a hero, people of courage. So get into the light, whether it's natural or artificial, inside or outside, stay in the light. And how do you do that? You get up every day and participate in your own life. And if you know someone, here's the hard part, who is isolating and hiding in the dark, reach out if you can. But there is a caveat to that. Whenever you are dealing with a drowning person, throw them a life preserver, but be very careful that you don't jump in the water with them to try to rescue them. Their instincts will be to take you under with them. And if someone chooses to take their own life, it's not your fault. I had a little gal a few years back that I loved dearly, and she drank herself to death. I threw her as many life preservers as I could, and I'm sure others did what they thought best. But we just couldn't save her. I asked myself if I could have done more. Of course, we all do. But I knew I just couldn't do more without going down with her. We all know that physical food and water are also vital for life. Most of us in this country have enough food and water to nourish our bodies. God provided food for the Israelites in the desert, but he provided Jesus Christ to feed our spirits. In John, the book of John, he tells us, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. The water that I give them will become a fresh, bubbling spring inside of them, giving them eternal life. Last of all, air. We all need air, that gift that we cannot see, feel, or touch, that we often take for granted. But it is necessary for life. Do not overwhelm yourself with things of this world. Do not let others smother you. And breathe deeply of the life that you have been given. Finally, and this was a question my loved one asked me about, there are some people that, like a plant, has the perfect amount, we've all had that plant, of sunlight, food, water, and air, and it just doesn't grow, and it dies. It's in the root system. Something's wrong with the root system. And that's the part of us that is buried. And sometimes that part we cannot see is the part that needs help. For these issues, we need help, such as talking to our pastor, some wise friends, or getting professional help. There are many support groups out there also for deeper issues. So, I discovered I don't have to wait for a better world out there. It is already enough. It is already a better world. I have to look inside of me and examine my heart, my mind, and my motives. And that personal relationship with Jesus Christ changes all of us one by one for the better, so that we may receive his kingdom here on earth. And when hearts are changed, we change, and our love for God and others becomes apparent. We love our neighbors as ourselves. We move out of ourselves enough to serve others. We find that we are already in the spiritual kingdom of Christ here on earth. And if we love one another, God lives in us. His love is perfected in us. And one more time, we find the beauty in our world, and hope springs eternal. Stay strong in the Lord, and he will lift you up.